What's good, everybody? Welcome to a very special edition of the DoubleHeader here on our YouTube channel. Stephen Finley, Andrew Holder below me, giving you guys the latest and greatest coverage over at 80.7 KTRM, the loudest radio station in the Midwest. Yesterday, actually, our first show on the radio at 7 p.m. Commenced every night, every week, or excuse me, every week at 7 on Tuesday nights. Definitely check us out for the live show, and we'll try to keep our recordings up and do things like this. So, got my PC in front of me and my laptop right here. So, I might be looking at two different spots, but we're all good to go. So, getting into what's clearly on the screen and what's clearly the talk of the town, Andrew. The Harden trade drama has finally been concluded. We all, coming to the season, there's a lot of talks about whether or not Harden would get moved, whether or not he had the ability to, get moved by Houston, whether or not he had that kind of leverage, whether or not the Nets wanted to give up that much. Just a lot of different factors were kind of circulating that made this really uncertain until today when, we got a lot of watch bombs that we're going to look over and a lot of other things. So, just kind of what was your reaction at just generally broadly, Andrew, when you heard the news about James Harden?
Um, Mainly surprised. I didn't expect for him to be traded to the Nets. Um, I think we all knew that he was going to be traded today. We saw the news about DeMarcus Cousins coming out in those interviews and mentioning that Harden was such a toxic locker room presence and that him and John Wall really did not want Harden on the team because of his toxicity in the locker room. And then we also saw Harden not report for Houston practice. And we saw him go out in an interview and quite literally say, I've done all I can for the city of Houston. It's time for me to get out of here. I just expected him to get traded to the 76ers. And I don't know what the tipping point was for Daryl Morey to refuse to trade for James Harden, but he's on the Nets now. So the one thing we can do now is discuss it.
Like you said, basically just at this point, it is what it is. Whether your reaction is positive or negative regarding this trade and what it means to the NBA. So definitely going to cover that and get right into it. So looking towards just a quick copyright disclaimer here. I'm using some images and things here, but they all belong to their respective owners. So, who got sent where is the big question everybody's kind of trying to figure out. If we go on over to our Twitter here, you guys see it, DoubleHeader. Make sure you follow us, check us out. But this is essentially and literally the most updated um, viewing of what the trade fully is. So as you can see here, the Nets receive James Harden, the Rockets receive Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Kurix, three Nets first rounders, one Milwaukee first rounder, and four Brooklyn Nets first round swap picks. Pacers will get Karis LeVert and a second rounder. Cavs will get Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince. So there's a lot of pieces here on the screen, Andrew, that went into play for this trade to even be made possible. As we see, mainly what's eye catching: three Brooklyn first rounders and four first round swap outs for the Nets, and also giving up Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, and Taurean Prince. The Nets really did have to go all out to finally push the Rockets to agree to this deal. And kind of an unspoken, kind of under the radar um, trade, Victor Oladipo getting sent to the Rockets. His first move in the NBA. He's been on the. Actually, wait, did Oladipo start? Did he play on the Magic? Am I?
I think he got drafted by the Magic and then he played like a season, but
Yeah.
then he got traded to the Pacers.
So Victor Oladipo getting moved once again. actually over to the Western Conference now. So we'll definitely see what Oladipo can do with the Rockets and John Wall and Cousins there. Rockets got a lot to work with in the future. They're certainly in sort of a strange place, I think, when you think of like a rebuild, but it's not a rebuild because they have John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins. I mean, it's kind of a strange position that the Rockets have put themselves in. But when you talk about acquiring seven, Nets picks, terms, you get a Milwaukee first round, and you still have three players picked up. I think the Rockets definitely got the maximum they could for James Harden. So, Andrew, just looking over this Bleacher Report tweet of the trade details, what names, what kind of things have catching your eye about this deal for James Harden?
I think the I think that the Pacers got the best out of this trade, to be honest. Because here's my thought process in that, right? Is you get rid of Oladipo. Oladipo, he's not old yet, but Karis LeVert fits the time frame of the Pacers a little bit better than Oladipo does at this current moment where they're building around Domantas Sabonis and possibly Miles Turner if he continues to play well. Karis LeVert he's a walking bucket, honestly. Like if you watch the Brooklyn Nets play, Karis LeVert is always that spark that comes onto the floor and he carries um the bench offense, excuse me, even though he is still pretty good on the defensive end. So I think the Pacers won this trade, but also I don't think any team really lost, I guess. Um, this Brooklyn team now kind of reminds me of the old Miami Heat with, of course, Wade, LeBron, and Bosh, where they're lacking a lot of depth, but they have three of the like top 10 players in the NBA currently. Kyrie, KD, and of course, James Harden now. So even without that defense and even without that depth, if they can mesh well, they're unstoppable.
I think for the Nets, one of their biggest adjustments is going to be the big three rotation. And this is kind of something that I have personally like kind of appointed to like a system of running a big three when you have three stars. And they're going to have to, Steve Nash is going to have to quickly understand how to divide the minutes up between these three guys, especially when it comes to the crunch time. Who's starting the fourth, who's kind of coming in the middle, and who's closing. Is the guy starting also closing? You have three guys who want to close, and I think it's going to be one of the most experimental big threes. Just not even just the way that they play, all of their personalities. Kyrie Irving's on a mission to speak out for social justice. I mean, he missed a game yesterday because he is sending a Zoom meeting about, some social justice issues. So he's serious about that. Kevin Durant's Kevin Durant. He's always going to be vocal. He's got his podcast, his stuff. And James Harden is clearly leaving a lot of drama behind in Houston, but it's going to keep following him. And a lot of people are not happy with this move. They're not happy with the way James Harden left Houston. And, even DeMarcus Cousins with some remarks about James Harden also dropped today. So it's definitely just kind of a whirlwind of trade. It happened so fast, it seems like. It's just wash bomb, wash bomb, wash bomb. And then here we are. So
Are you really ever going to be happy with a superstar leaving your team if they didn't bring a championship to your city? I really don't remember a time where that's happened and they haven't been like hated by the fan base. Maybe Paul George with the Pacers, but Paul George was suffering from a ton of injuries. But
yeah, I can't really think of one that comes to mind. It always seems like the guys who gave like the most, but like at the end of their career, they got switched off to somewhere. And that's where like the positive like Vince Carter, like when he first got traded from like the Raptors or something. They were probably like, "Oh, thanks, Vince." Like, you know what I'm saying. Anyways, um,
Yeah.
moving on to our next slide here on the James Harden Special Edition doubleheader. League-wide reaction. So, gonna go ahead and take a look at some of the explore section regarding James Harden's trending right now. The Nets are trending, so we'll see what people are saying. Okay. Um, Skip Bayless, the one and only.
He's goofy.
Got to get a Nets jersey now. Shout out to Skip.
I didn't
Definitely.
even realize he liked James Harden. But I guess he just has to cheer for the favorite, like he cheered for the Clippers.
NBA 2K dropping the James Harden render there. Actually looks kind of clean, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, definitely some interesting reactions here. I know, let me see if I can find Bradley Beal with the a simple little spicy 2 hours ago.
I
Uh
saw that CJ McCollum tweeted something like was about to take a nap. Like this is really like the craziest league ever. Yeah, it should be the most recent. He's got a podcast.
Trump impeached twice and a trade all in one day. 2021 shaping up to be a great year after all.
Oh, that's funny.
CJ McCollum with some
Yeah,
oh
right
yeah,
there,
like
right before my nap, huh? I wish I could say the same thing. I was in Spanish class.
Oh, oops. I thought that would open up LeBron's page.
Has
But
LeBron tweeted anything?
let's see. Well, this was six
Oh
hours ago. It's just 6 hours ago.
no,
So,
but what do you think about what Stephen A. Said? Because he was like, yeah, Kyrie first went to his sister's birthday party without a mask, and now he's continuing to miss games for like no reason. And he was like, if I were Kyrie, I'd retire right now. Like you don't want to play basketball that much, obviously. And that was the gist of what he said.
um, I mean, it's kind of it's a hard. Here, I'm gonna pause this or take it off the screen. It's a funny meme. But I think that he shouldn't necessarily retire, but it's almost like a Michael. This is very this is really the one of the only comparisons I can make. But it's kind of like a Michael Jordan situation. We see Michael Jordan fading away from basketball, wanting to explore other things. He's looking towards golf. He's trying to get signed to these other teams. And I think Kyrie Irving's in a weird kind of spot like that, but it's a lot more confusing because Kyrie is clearly still in his prime. In the first couple of games that they played in this season, Kyrie was still performing and looking like a different guy next to KD. So it's just really weird how it seems like he can perform and at a high level and be elite Kyrie, but at the same time, his mental and his priorities are just very, very separated and segregated from the NBA. It seems like, especially when you talk about the birthday party and breaking the mask protocol that's in place for all players, and missing the games for these Zoom calls that are important, but you're being paid, you're being kind of held under contracts. It's not much leeway for Kyrie to kind of have the freedom that I think he's seeking out.
No, yeah, and thank you for saying that, because it is important that he's going to these meetings regarding social justice and, of course, the ever-growing Black Lives Matter movement in America, um, which has been discussed a lot following the events that happened at the Capitol last Wednesday. But yeah, I think there's a time and a place for talking about social justice, and there's a time and a place for playing basketball. And as a player in the NBA who's being paid billions of dollars to play basketball, you should be invested in playing basketball and then be invested in social justice on your own time. That's not the time of the team, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. That balance of being more than just an athlete while also maintaining your athletic duties is certainly a thin line that we've seen. But here, I'm actually gonna go back down the header Twitter, see if we can find anything else. This is a scary picture for a lot of people. That's definitely a big three, to say the least. Kendrick Perkins, or this was yesterday, excuse me, but Rockets and Nets need to go ahead and make that Kyrie for Harden trade happen ASAP. Kendrick Perkins, the fortune teller of the NBA. Zach Lowe, okay, now do Kyrie for Russ and just reunite the 2012 Thunder. Larry Nance, sheesh. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people are saying. But
Bradley Beal, man, what is going on here? I think we all feel the same way as Bradley Beal. Probably one of the most relatable players in the NBA. Besides the fact that he's averaging like 30 points per game right now.
Stephen A. Smith will close off our Twitter viewings, but this should do it. Y'all heard the news from Waj and Harden heading to Nets. It should be NBA Finals, Lakers versus Nets. Stephen A. Smith calling the NBA Finals already. You'd love to see it from one of ESPN's finest. But okay. And just get into our last little part of this special. Thanks for tuning in with us, guys. Hope you enjoy this. Let us know if you want more, content like this. Zoom allows us to record pretty easily, and we can use these slides and try to keep it visually engaging while still talking sports with everyone. So definitely let us know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into the final part. So, Andrew, I know I asked you about your initial reaction earlier, but this time I kind of want to pick your brain about the deeper ramifications of James Harden being sent to the Nets. What does this mean for the Eastern Conference to begin with?
I'm going to have to disagree with the tweet that we saw from Stephen A. Smith earlier. I don't know if this is a guaranteed Brooklyn Nets versus Lakers championship. I really don't, because obviously they have 3 top 10 players in the NBA, but also we have no idea how those 3 personalities are going to mesh. We have no idea if Kyrie's just going to be like, okay, I disagree with James Harden, so now I'm going to be like, I'm just not going to play like he did with the Celtics. And we saw that toxic locker room presence, as Jaylen Brown told us a couple seasons ago. So I definitely have them making the Eastern Conference Finals. I think it depends on who they play. I could see the Milwaukee Bucks beating them. And honestly, if Joel Embiid continues the pace that he's going at right now, I could see the Philadelphia 76ers, making a case in a series versus the Nets. But I think right now they should be viewed as the favorite, just not the lock.
For me, it's all about the research. Obviously, there hasn't been a lot of games played. When you talk about that, the Nets are in the 7th spot and they're only 2 games back technically. Uh, so obviously, really looking at the seeding standings doesn't mean much currently, but like you said, I definitely can predict a Nets, first, second seed in the East. Kind of dependent upon, like you said, just how people at the top are going to play in the East. Is the Boston Dynamic duo going to keep doing what they're doing? Is Joel Embiid still going to be this monster big man this season? Uh, Even for the Pacers, the move of Victor Oladipo by adding Karis LeVert, what does that do to their team in terms of making them a legitimate contender? So the East is definitely looking very balanced, to say the least. And then some of this balance is created by surprising starts like these. The Knicks are, a 9 spot, and the Heat just are kind of, stumbling along right now, like we said earlier on our show yesterday, talking about the Raptors. So definitely, definitely the Nets conference to take, but also easily their conference to lose. And we're gonna see what Steve Nash can do under the LeBronless East. Everyone says who's coming out of the East nowadays if LeBron's not there anymore. So we'll definitely see what's going on with that.
I think that if anyone can control all the conflicting personalities, it's going to be Steve Nash because he's had experience with that with the Suns and then with the Dallas Mavericks as well.
Coach, for sure, Steve Nash. In his first coaching gig, gonna have his hands full with this team. But okay, so moving on to the other guys, the Western Conference side. Obviously, Stephen A's prediction: Nets, Lakers. Two opposite spectrums right now in the standings for both of them. Lakers top of the West, Nets obviously sitting right there. But uh, do you think that with the addition of James Harden, Andrew, the Lakers have a legitimate concern when it comes to potentially facing the Nets in the NBA Finals as the Western Conference favorites?
I mean, about as much of a concern as playing a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, I feel like. I think that um, LeBron, or I think that Anthony Davis, excuse me, matches up well against an older Kevin Durant. And I mean, Kevin Durant is obviously, I think, a little bit quicker than Anthony Davis and obviously a better player at the current stages in their career. Um, but I don't know if I'd be worried if I were the Lakers. One, you still have LeBron James, who's excellent. You have Anthony Davis. You have two top five players in the league, and then you have a deep rotation. So I'm not worried if I'm the Lakers, but you should definitely be keeping an eye out on the Nets, just like every other team.
I think that um, kind of in a weird, ironic way, this formation of the Nets is almost a supervillain team against LeBron. You talk about Kevin Durant and LeBron's duels in the NBA Finals, Kyrie's fallout with LeBron, and even James Harden, getting sunned by LeBron last year in the playoffs. Definitely a lot of targets will be placed on the Lakers, and I think the Nets can certainly rally around, kind of a, they don't think we can make it mentality. But 100%, like you said, the Lakers are going to look at the Nets how they look at everybody else. But obviously, there's going to be a little more attention around the Nets. There's going to be a little bit more to game plan for when you talk about how to handle a rotation of three ISO get your buckets whenever you want to players. And I think it's gonna make for a lot of interesting defensive schemes, but also a lot of um what am I trying to say? For the Nets, it's gonna be a lot of understanding your role on the team. If it wasn't that apparent in the first part of the season before this trade, or not even the first part, but just in the first 10 games, 12 games, uh, then definitely guys like Joe Harris and Dinwiddie's out for the season, unfortunately. But you talk about Landry Shamet, DeAndre Jordan, the guys who are still there. Jeff Green, the guys who's still had their spot. They're gonna have to step up, and they're gonna have to make this Nets team kind of mesh, kind of in the same way like the Heat role players did in the Big Three: Mario Chalmers, Shane Battier, Ray Allen. Even Mike Miller, Chris Anderson, even a bunch of guys who might not be superstars on their own can come together around superstars to make a great team. So definitely some excitement there for the Nets.
What are we gonna say about the Nets if they do win this championship? And the reason I'm asking that is because I hate to bring up LeBron, but the Heat is the most similar comparison I can have and a lot of people devalidate LeBron's rings with the Heat because he had a super team built around him. So are we going to devalidate Kevin Durant's rings in the same way? Or is this going to be his third legitimate ring? If they do win the championship, of course.
You said, okay, so basically you're asking, would this ring be legit for the Nets? Like, we wouldn't discredit them for having a super team?
Well, I mean, not necessarily for the Nets, because I think individual players are different than the team. But right now, what we've seen in Kevin Durant's career is that he wins rings with super teams and he falls just short with a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Um, I mean, I think personally that, my impression of everyone's impression of Kevin Durant is that his Warriors chips were iffy. They are, kind of the snake undertone championships. And a lot of people to this day still don't give him credit for those. They still say that, he ran from the guys he ran to the guys who beat him, essentially. And I think this is a different situation. I think this is Kevin Durant after making a move to a situation that he wants to get a ring, but also it wasn't. I mean, there was rumors. Obviously, they were former teammates, but Kevin Durant's not the GM. He's not in the front office of the Brooklyn Nets.
How
And
do we know that though?
I mean, you might express, some side, like, bring Harden if you want, or bring another superstar if you want, but it's like I don't know. It just wasn't as public, I think, as just use an example as LeBron, where it seemed like it was a lot more, I want Bosh, I want D Wade, I'm going to South Beach, let's make it happen. KD and Kyrie were like, yeah, we can kind of team up, link up, and we might get another star. We're looking at Harden, maybe Giannis, but if it doesn't happen, we have another year to reset to get that third star. But I think that for this situation, Kevin Durant was on a team that was already kind of unfair, but I mean, can you blame the Brooklyn Nets for wanting to be relevant in basketball, like, completely, when you add James Harden to your team?
No, not at all. It's just a big risk grabbing James Harden, and I don't maybe maybe like delegitimize isn't the right word. Maybe like, is the ring any less valuable now that they have James Harden?
I think for Kevin Durant and Kyrie, it could be because actually, no. Let me reverse my thinking here. KD and Kyrie's ring should not be less valued, but James Harden's, uh, that's an interesting place to discuss, because you talk about a guy who tried to stick it out, with the Thunder. He was a part of a Thunder finals run. They were young back then, and then he gets sent to the Rockets. The whole time he's trying to prove that he can, be the star player on a championship team, and it just never happened. It never came through. They gave up, their 3-0s and all these things. So there's certainly a lot of um, room to evaluate whether or not the rings are worth more or not. But out of the three guys, I think James Harden's ring should be valued the least. What about you?
I think Kyrie's legacy is secure. Um, he obviously won that ring with the Cleveland Cavaliers and probably had one of the greatest final shots ever. I don't know if I'd put it over Jordan's shot against the Utah Jazz, but it was still incredible nonetheless. Um, so Kyrie's safe because he did win a ring. I say just with LeBron, like, he isn't one of the greatest players of all time. Um, or pardon me, the greatest player of all time. But anyways, Kevin Durant, it's okay. I don't trust Kevin Durant, I guess. maybe I'm in a different boat than you are, but I think Kevin Durant holds a lot more control than you think he does over the front office. I think he's just a lot more conspicuous about it than someone like LeBron, who literally tweets like, "I'm going to invite Anthony Davis over for dinner to talk about contracts."
Taco Tuesday.
Literally. Um, and then, um, so I agree with you. I think if anything, this is least valuable for Harden because he did demand a trade to either the Nets, the Heat, or the Philadelphia 76ers. Pretty teams who are definitely in contention for an NBA Finals. Um, which I don't blame him, but also like he has to understand that if he does win a ring, it's not going to be as important or um as notable as he may like. But also there's that attitude I think every time a player goes to a different team to win a ring. So except for I guess if Jimmy Butler had won the ring with the Miami Heat, I don't think people would have said the same thing. But at least when LeBron went to the Heat and he won his ring, people were like, "Oh, you can't win with the Cavs." Or when Anthony Davis went and won with the Lakers, "Oh, you can't win with the Pelicans." And it's just that narrative that goes through the NBA fan base and media alike. And it's kind of toxic, but also it does have some truth to it.
For sure. Definitely isn't an NBA fan base with a little toxicity. So I think we're gonna go ahead and close out on a positive note here, though. And I think that was a great special, great trade special. And go ahead and get this posted, uploaded. Once again, thank you guys for listening, watching all the way through to the end. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on our Twitter down here. And pull up our page. Uh, to the doubleheader. Here on Twitter, doubleheader the. People's taking our names, but it's cool. Uh, but yes, hopefully looking forward to doing more things like this. I think I might be able to talk Andrew into a divisional round playoff special also. So keep you guys locked onto that one. But my name's Stephen Finley. Andrew Holder above me, below me, wherever he's at. Signing off. Peace.